Well, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to this bi-weekly press briefing. To start out, I want to note that today is actually the birthday of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. He would be 85 years old today, and we're going to observe that holiday, of course, as a holiday on Monday. I think we all know that Dr. King fought passionately for economic justice, and in fact, I think we all will remember that he was rallying for higher wages and better benefits for the sanitation workers in Memphis when he was tragically assassinated in 1968. So, on the day when we commemorate Dr. King's birthday, I am delighted to join the chairman, Council Chairman, of course, Phil Mendelson, in signing a bill that will guarantee a higher wage for District of Columbia workers. Bill 20-459, the Minimum Wage Amendment Act of 2013, will eventually raise the minimum wage in the District of Columbia to $11.50 through several incremental increases of $1 each, beginning in July of 2014, then 2015, and then 2016. Of course, I support the legislation, and I'm delighted to sign it. I see it, frankly, as a first step in a process of being able to recognize that this is a more complicated issue than just raising the wages. That's why many of you know that I asked the Urban Institute to take a look at this, to conduct a complete study on how best to raise the district's minimum wage without precipitating a negative impact on our economic growth in the city. We have actually added in the last 3 years 36,000 private sector jobs. It's one of the things that's helped to ameliorate the loss of federal jobs in the District of Columbia, which continues to precipitously drop. Frankly, if we hadn't seen that drop in federal jobs, we would have a much lower level of unemployment than we do at present. So we'll continue to do that. And, of course, those jobs will be attractive because of the wages that will be paid to people. I will say this, that one of the things we need to be mindful of is as we raise our own wages, we need to be cognizant of the fact that they also become attractive to people who don't live in the District of Columbia. We have now a situation in which only 3 out of 10 jobs are filled by people who actually live in the District of Columbia. Those jobs will become even more attractive and more competitive as our wages raise and there's more distance put between us and the surrounding jurisdiction. In any event, with the signing of the bill today, we join a number of cities and states across the country that are acting to reduce income equality in their jurisdictions. President Obama put it well. It's well past the time to raise the minimum wage that in real terms right now is below the wage that was paid during the presidency of Harry Truman, and that, of course, was during the period of, 1949 to 1952, until 1952. He was the president before that. So it's obvious that we're doing the right thing by moving in this direction. So I'd like to call up now our chairman, council member, chairman, council member at large. That's what's on the door, right? I remember that being on the door. At large member. I never quite understood why the chairman. I guess you are elected at large.
You can't find me. I'm at large.
I'm sure I'll be able to find you, Chairman. Please join me in welcoming our chairman, Phil Mendelson.
Thank you, Mayor Gray, and good morning to everyone. This really is an extraordinary event.
substantively because of the bill that's before us for signing, but also I do not recall another occasion when the two branches have come together for signing a bill, and that's how important this bill is. I want to thank Mayor Gray for his support of this bill. I want to thank in particular, or especially, Councilmember Vincent Orange, at-large councilmember, because it was through your committee. You were the manager of the bill as it went through the council. I, of course, want to thank my colleagues. The council was unanimous in its vote for this legislation. And I want to thank the many advocates, and I have a list here, and I'm going to leave a few out, and that's not intentional, but that's because there was a lot of support for this legislation, including the Metropolitan Washington Council, AFL-CIO, Unite HERE Local 25, SEIU Local 32BJ, Laborers International Union, the Employment Justice Center, Center for Study of Responsive Law. They provided a lot of good substantive research that we were able to use. The DC Fiscal Policy Institute and some of the research that they did, Reverend Galen Hagler, and a lot of the advocacy from the grassroots that he brought to this issue. And without this widespread support, I don't think the passage would have been as easy as it was. I also want to especially thank regional colleagues, and I know the colleagues aren't here. I don't think there's anybody from Prince George's County Council or from Montgomery County Council. Thank you for being here, Councilmember Franklin. Thank you for being here, because we could not have passed this well, we could have, but it would have been much more difficult if we had not been able to do this on a regional basis as well. What this legislation does is raise the minimum wage to $9.50 starting this July, to $10.50 July 2015, to $11.50 in July 2016. At the moment, that would be the highest minimum wage in the country, except for a very, very small town outside of Seattle, Washington. And the legislation would index thereafter the minimum wage. 50 years ago, Lyndon Johnson declared war on poverty. It was a big deal in the 60s. It was an important part of his administration. He understood the nature of poverty and how intractable poverty is, and the need for the government to step up and do much, much more to fight poverty. That's why he declared war on it, and part of that campaign was to raise the minimum wage in 1968 to a level which, if that 1968 minimum wage had kept pace with inflation, would be $10.70 today. By contrast, the federal minimum wage today is $7.25, and in the district it's $8.25. So we are going the distance to close that gap. Not only has there been a decline in the relative power of the minimum wage, but if the 1968 minimum wage had kept pace with worker productivity, it would be $22 today. And if it had kept pace with the wealth of the top 1% of earners in this country, it would be $33 today. Now, some have said that raising the minimum wage is bad for business and therefore bad for jobs. But what good is a job that requires a person to take government assistance? Thousands of workers on the minimum wage across this country have to enroll in Medicaid, food stamps, and other government assistance programs. The minimum wage, as it has declined in value, has perpetuated poverty, not ended it. And, in effect, government subsidizes business when we shift a portion of a living wage to a government subsidy. Already, there are 6 jurisdictions in this country, 3 cities and 3 states, that require a higher minimum wage than the District of Columbia, the highest being San Francisco at $10.55 today. Yet the cost of living to live in the District of Columbia is one of the highest in the country, if not the highest in the country, and estimated, depending upon which research organization you look at $13.67 for one adult or $26.35 for an adult and child. Again, I want to just say something about the cooperation in the region. Passing this legislation was the right thing to do for the District of Columbia, in the District of Columbia. But some would have argued about economic flight. The businesses would leave the district. I don't think so. But With Prince George's County and Montgomery County working in unison with the District of Columbia, the three jurisdictions adopting a very similar minimum wage, we dealt with that argument, and that regional cooperation is unprecedented. And the minimum wage benefits in terms of the total population of the three jurisdictions, 2.5 million people. And I believe that the action by our two neighboring jurisdictions as well as the district will encourage the state of Maryland, and I hope the Commonwealth of Virginia to look at what raising their minimum wage. Again, I want to thank all of my colleagues on the council, my regional colleagues, and the advocates for their work on this legislation. This bill will make a difference to a lot of people. And with that, if it's right with you, I'd like Councilmember Orange to speak and say a few words.
Well, good morning. I'm absolutely elated to be here and to be here with all the folks that helped work on this to make this a reality. Really, today is a victory for the citizens of the District of Columbia, and in particular, the 40,000 residents that will actually benefit from this bill. I do want to state for the record, I did author and introduce the Minimum Wage Act of 2013, and co-sponsors was Councilmember Jim Graham and Councilmember Phil Mendelson. And we were really elated when the entire council voted 13-0 on two occasions to make this a reality. As you know, there were a number of minimum wage bills that came through the council, so we looked at a number of things, but my bill went forward to increase the minimum wage to $11.50 per hour with annual increases pursuant to the Consumer Price Index. And it's also great that just here recently, the Department of Employment Services made the adjustment for the living wage. So the living wage is now at $13.40 per hour, and we expect another adjustment on or before March 1 of this year that will probably take that living wage to $13.70 per hour. So for the residents, we're doing well. We're showing that there can be a great balance between business and workers. At the end of the day, the District of Columbia is doing extremely well. We have one of the highest disposable incomes. We have residents moving in. We have cranes in the city. Now all we have to do is connect our residents to those jobs and provide affordable housing, access to health care, and we're off and running. We probably have to close our borders because everybody wants to be in the nation's capital because we're doing great. So I want to thank Mayor Gray and thank the legislative branch and everyone else, and especially all the workers and the unions and labor and the religious community and everyone that came together and worked on this and made it a reality. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Can we get a pen for Josh?
Absolutely. He's on my list.
I hear you.
As are you.
Hey, it's the other one.
Congratulations, Rick.
I have to sign it first before the mayor gets it. Sorry, just the way it goes.
Thank you, sir. This is for Josh. Oh, wow, they're really good.
And where's Grayland Hagler?
Reverend Hagler? He's here. He's here.
Yep, I'm in.
Reverend.
Councilman Orange? Yes, the chair of the committee. For you and Andrea and the others.
I will deliver. Thank you so much.
John Boardman.
John Boardman.
He's here as well.
He went to find Reverend Hagler, but
He already got it.
I know, but I'm trying to give
You wanna give him another?
Josh's pen.
yeah.
Josh, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Rick,
Rick?
they're calling Reverend Hagler.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. See? God does all kinds of things.
Hey, sir. How you been? Good.
If you all will go ahead and take your seats, media would please go back to your seats and your cameras so we can go ahead and take questions. Also, at this point,
We'll sit down. Appreciate it. Thanks.
We'll go ahead and take questions in just a second on both the Minimum Wage Act and general questions as well. So if you are here only for the Minimum Wage Act, if you could go ahead and you're welcome to leave the room quietly and quickly so we can go on with the rest of the press conference. So once again, we're going to take general questions in just a second. If you have a question about the Minimum Wage Act, we'll answer that at that time. But if you're here for just the Minimum Wage Act and you have other things to do, you can go ahead and clear the room now so we can carry on the rest of the press conference. Thank you.
All right. We were trying to give people a chance to leave for those who wish to leave. I guess we'll take questions. The chairman is going to stay if there are questions on the bill itself. Yes. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, you initially, when this bill was before the council, you said that you preferred $10 an hour and then have this study that you said you wanted to do to see where you went from there. But you now say you support this bill, and you had also said you might want to seek to make changes once you get the study. Where are you on letting this bill go forward now that you've signed it, or do you think you might come back with proposals to change it?
What those changes would be, Mr. Sherwood, I'm signing the bill enthusiastically. As a matter of fact, my proposal was even start at a higher rate. But, you know, we want to move this forward, and I was delighted to be able to sign it. We will be getting our results of the Urban Institute study soon, and I want to talk to Chairman Mendelson about those results and see if there's something that will further improve the bill, and maybe we can work together on that, Phil, if there are things that we believe will further enhance the bill. But we don't have the results yet, but we'll be getting those really in a matter of weeks. Mm-hmm. Mike?
It's a wage-related question. It's not a minimum wage-related question. But your administration recently moved to update the living wage for contractors in the city. That was delayed from, I believe, 2011. 2010 or 2011 was the last time it's been updated. Can you describe what the holdup was on this, and what's the commitment of the administration to making sure that some of these workers get back to them?
Well, the holdup, as I understand it, it predates us, Mike. We simply brought it up to date with with the actions that we took. I don't know if there's a mandate for back pay or not. If there is, we'll observe it. But I don't know if there is. Victor, you know if there is not, right? We brought it up to, I think it's 1340. Yep. 1340. That was the order that was issued, and we'll observe that, and we'll of course observe the law. We'll obey the law.
No, sir.
So I'll be happy to answer any questions, but these are just media questions at this point. You're welcome. Questions? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mel. Mel. Okay? Bruce?
Mayor, could you comment on the Washington Post poll? What did you like about the poll? What did you find, reason to be concerned about that poll?
Be the mayor today. I'm going to not be a candidate. Those who have questions about the poll, I would invite you to contact our campaign and our campaign manager, Chuck Thies, and he'll be happy to go over the details with you. Yes?
Without referring specifically to the poll, do you think you're honest and trustworthy?
Do you honestly think I'm going to answer that question?
I think you would. I think I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it. Well,
I'm not going to. If I have to answer a question like that, Tom, come on, okay? Any other questions? Yes.
Last week at the ANC 8C meeting, you suggested that you regret the use of the UMC turnaround money. Can you expand on that?
I regret the what now?
The United Medical Center turnaround money. You said it wasn't the. You said you're starting to think it wasn't the best money spent.
You're talking about purchase of 2007.
You mean way back when?
Yeah, you said that last week.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the turnaround. The turnaround money I think about, Will, is the money that we've invested with Huron to try to improve the operations of the hospital. I happen to think that is money well spent. My concern is that the money, almost $100 million, maybe more than $100 million invested in the hospital, I'm not seeing the return on it at this stage, and that's my concern, especially when we now are talking about the probability of building a new hospital, so that the capital investment that was made will probably be lost. That hospital was built back in the late 40s, early 50s. And it's cavernous. When you think about it, it was a hospital that was built to accommodate 450 beds. And in today's terms, nobody would build a hospital of that magnitude anymore because people just don't have, one, hospital stays of that length anymore as they used to be. And secondly, some of the conditions for which people were hospitalized, they no longer are hospitalized. They may be, outpatient treatment. So that we need a different kind of facility there that will probably necessitate a different kind of investment. And my concern in particular is that that the city invested a lot of money in that building down there that probably won't be able to benefit us at all. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, potholes have popped up all across the region because the temperature swings and drivers are swerving into oncoming traffic or braking hard. Can you talk about what the city is doing to try to fill in some of these potholes?
Yeah, we have a very strong pothole program, Pothole Palooza. Are you familiar with that? Yes. Yeah, and we will do exactly the same thing again this year. As a matter of fact, it's interesting you raised that because I was coming down 27th Street Southeast a couple of days ago and ran through a pothole, and I immediately got in touch with DDOT to say here's a pothole that needs to be filled. You're absolutely right that these things occur when you have these weather swings like this. We've had snow on the ground, of course. Then the salt, the things that we have to do in order to prevent icing and whatnot, oftentimes create these kind of conditions. But we are going to repair those potholes as quickly as we can. That's what we've done the last, certainly during my term, the last 3 years, and we'll continue to do that this year. Get them fixed as quickly as possible because it's a terrible experience to run through one of those with an automobile.
Mr. Mayor, where was that pothole? We need to go check if it was filled.
That pothole was in the 1700 block of 27th Street Southeast, which was just south of Pope's Funeral Home. You know how you come down off of Naylor Road? You know that area of the city, don't you, Mike? Yeah, you come down off of Naylor Road and down the hill there, and there was a pothole there. And I'm absolutely certain that if it hasn't been fixed, it'll probably be fixed by the time you get out there now. Ms. Brazil.
I just wanted to ask a question for future reference sake. In response to Bruce Johnson's question this morning, you said that you were going to be mayor, and you have referred all questions regarding the poll, and I guess your campaign to your campaign manager. Going forward, since we are in campaign mode, are you not going to take questions that might relate to your campaign at these weekly press conferences, and if not there, shows that, to use Mr. Pease's words, we avoid a circus-like atmosphere with the media. In what context would you be responsive to the media?
Well, I don't know that I won't do them at these kinds of sessions in the future. I might. We'll make those decisions as we go along. But we'll try to be as responsive as we can in one way or the other to the questions that are raised about the campaign.
But my question is, have you given any thought to whether or not you're going to have separate press conferences regarding matters regarding your campaign, or whether or not questions can be asked at your biweekly press conference?
No, I haven't given any thought to separate press conferences. And of course, sometimes, I've tried to be very accommodating to the press. You all stop me on the street, you all stop me in other places, and I try to be as accommodating and as responsive as I can. So, we'll see how it goes in the future. Some days that doesn't go very well, as some of you know. Will? Let me make sure I have I've given everybody a chance to. Yes, Ben.
One of the sites that Walmart has decided to build a store, I think it's at the one up on New York Avenue in Bladensburg, which is put up for sale. Is that, if that location is now in jeopardy, and if it is, are you committed to keeping that location on track to be a Walmart site?
Yeah, that's a developer issue. I don't know all the details. That's a developer issue. I don't know whether, Victor, there's anything you would add to that, but I don't know whether that site will work out, because that's unfortunately not within our control at this point.
If it doesn't, would you try to get Walmart to another site?
Well, we'll see. We'll work it out. We'll continue to work with the council member and the community and see what seems to work. James?
Mr. Mayor, this is a quick question. The Fossil Fuel Reinvestment Act of 2013, I don't know whether you've seen the bill, but I'm sure you understand the issue about the city divesting its funds from corporations and other entities that emit fossil fuel stuff. What is have you taken a position on this, and what do you think about the issue in general?
Well, I haven't taken a position on the bill. I haven't seen it, James. I haven't read it. Because there's so many bills that come through, I can't get to all of them. However, if there's a hearing coming up, we always try to look at those very carefully. Work with Janine Jackson. Every week we get a report on the hearings that are coming up and have an extensive discussion about them. I do think that I use the framework of our Sustainable DC plan as the basis for positions on anything involving the environment, involving the planet, involving the city. So I would evaluate that bill on the basis of how consonant it is with our Sustainable DC plan. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, one bill that's now working its way through that you took a position on last year was the decriminalization of marijuana. That is coming up for a vote today in committee, and we now know the details. What was initially a $100 fine is now a $25 fine for possession. Did you endorse that particular proposal?
I don't know if we've looked at all the details of it, but first of all, let me underscore. I have been hopefully very clear to everybody that I support decriminalization of marijuana. I mean, we have far too many people in our jails who are there because of marijuana-related violations. The issues around people not only possessing but selling, marijuana, distributing marijuana, people doing it around schools and recreation centers. Those are things that are especially troubling to me. But as a general proposition, I support the decriminalization of marijuana.
What about legalization?
That's another issue. I'm not there yet. Anybody who has, Matt?
Follow up on that. Do you think $25 really sends the message that maybe you shouldn't be smoking marijuana? I was told that the reason they came up with that dollar figure is that $100 was too much for people that lived in poor communities. Is $25 is less than a parking ticket? Do you think that that's a fair fine, or do you think there should be?
Well, I haven't evaluated whether $25 or $100 is the right number. The bigger issue for me, Matt, is whether again, excuse me for being redundant, but I think we have far too many people in our jails now who are there for possession charges, who are there for, a quote-unquote criminal act that I think is we long since passed. So I think that which leads us to be able to not jail people for possession of marijuana is something that I support. You know, we'll continue to discuss. The bill will come before the council. We'll interact with the council on that, around whether $25 or $100 or $50 is the right number, but it's going in the right direction, in my opinion.
On marijuana, the Senate, House, and agreement on the budget going forward includes a provision, once again, that says, or in this one, that the city cannot spend federal dollars on any legalization or change in the federal laws on dealing with controlled substances. Do you have any view of that?
Well, you know, I have a broader view of the control of our budget, and I think everybody knows that I believe that we should have the authority to make the decisions about our budget, and whatever is permissible to any other state in terms of how federal funds are used, we should have the same opportunity in the District of Columbia. So it isn't just that one. It is really the broader issue. And by the way, I am delighted that we now have legislation that appears it will exempt us from the possibility of a shutdown for fiscal year 15. I hope that will become a matter in perpetuity. We went through what was a very inappropriate situation back in October, and that was the threat of a shutdown. I'm glad that we chose not to do that in the District of Columbia. We kept the government open, and frankly, we were able to help the federal government with its trash pickup, since they were not able to do so through the National Park Service. Again, I think we should be treated equally to every one of the 50 states in terms of how our budget is handled. And of course, they don't approve the budgets of other states, so our budget shouldn't have to go through that approval process either. And as far as the use of federal funds, we should get our federal funds in the same way the other 50 states get theirs. You know, Medicaid allocations, federal highway funds, TANF funds, food stamps. However federal funds are allocated should be allocated in the same way here in the District of Columbia.
Mayor, I know you just said that legalization, you're not there yet. You know, last week, Group Back to this filed an initiative with the Board of Elections. Do you support having voters weigh in on that question? If they handed you a petition and put that on the ballot, would you put a legalization, sign a petition for legalization? Well,
I'm always interested in hearing from the people of the District of Columbia. We are uniquely disenfranchised, so I'm not going to add to the disenfranchisement of people. You know, remember that when we had a referendum on medical marijuana that was commandeered, embargoed by the Hill, that sat there for a decade without being approved, and stymied, thwarted the will of the people of the District of Columbia. So I'm never going to do anything that would not give the people of the city a chance to express themselves. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I guess I treat myself in that instance as a citizen like everybody else and make a decision on what I'd like to do. And I haven't really thought that through yet. Will?
The DC United project has missed a couple deadlines. What's the status of that, and are you concerned about the delay?
No, I'm not concerned about the delay. We're still negotiating on terms and conditions. We want to make sure we get the best possible deal for the people of the District of Columbia. So that when we do move forward with it, we will hopefully reflect the sentiments of the people of this city. The city administrator has been meeting with council members. I think you've met with 11 of the 13. There are some good points that I think have been made by council members along the way. We'll probably make changes in the proposal based on some of the information we've gotten. So I don't think we should. You know, we said we were going to hit a certain date, but for my part anyway, what's more important to me is to have the best possible proposal that we can, so we can have the best possible stadium for the people of the city when we do move forward. So if it takes a little bit longer, I'm fine with that. Yes.
I want to go back to the minimum wage bill for a moment. You said the Urban Institute has its report, which is going to be coming out. Someone back here said to me it was a $250,000 report. What is it looking at? If you've signed this bill, that's...
I don't think it's $250,000. I don't know who said that.
That's why I'm mentioning I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's $250. I don't think it's anywhere near $250,000.
Ask staff, though.
I can say, we follow up.
We'll follow up with you, but I'm almost sure.
Looking for in the study regards.
We're looking for some comparative analyses, if you will, of what issues affect when you raise the minimum wage. What are the impacts on it? I mean, it's a very popular thing to do, obviously. The council unanimously supported it. I've supported it. But are there other factors that we should be weighing in there? You know, is there an impact on jobs, for example? Is there a wage level you reach where people start to shed jobs as a result of that? And I just want to be able to put that in front of everybody. There's other factors as well, and that's what the Urban Institute will tell us, so that it's more than just, and maybe it is not more than just an increase in the wage. But as we go forward, especially since this is a process that will unfold in 14, 15, and 16, that we know what the other factors are that we ought to consider, and whether we need to tweak the legislation in any way to reflect those concerns.
The impact, excuse me, just the impact of Virginia staying at 725. If the feds don't change, then that would be one of the studies, I guess. But
yeah, I think one of the issues for me is, you know, how many people are we going to attract from other jurisdictions who want jobs because the jobs pay higher, you know, and maybe better benefits in the District of Columbia than they do, for example, in the Commonwealth. Right now, the Commonwealth, as you indicated, pays $7.25. The more space we put between ourselves and them, the more likely we are to attract people who want those jobs in the city. You know, and another effect of that is, of course, we cannot tax income at its source. So if we hire somebody from Virginia, not only will they, or the private sector hire somebody from Virginia, not only will they capture a job that might have gone to somebody in the District of Columbia, their tax dollars will be paid where they live, which will be a loss to the District of Columbia as well. Those are the things that I want to look at, and we've asked the Urban Institute to identify for us so we can put them in front of people. And there may be legislative remedies that we would entertain based on what the findings are.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, how would you prevent that? It's already going on, people from outside the city coming in.
I don't know, Bruce. It's something that we would look at. Maybe we can't. You know, we already are affected materially by the fact that that people work in the city. 70% of the jobs filled by people who don't live in the city, which means those taxes are going elsewhere. And frankly, one of the things I would use it for is to continue to work with the Congress to say, this is the kind of impact that you have on this city, a city that is working hard to support itself, that is doing a pretty good job of supporting itself. When you go anywhere else in the nation, people have the authority to be able to impose, you know, the tax on income at its source, or commuter tax, or whatever you want to, you know, we want to call it. And please understand, House of Representatives, please understand, United States Senate, please understand, Mr. President, these are the constraints that we operate under every day, and yet another argument as to why we need to be given our own autonomy. The fact of the matter is, we're probably in this for the long haul, but the haul will be very long as you know, until we continue to make the case.
Tom's question. When the minimum wage bill was, the proposal had Target and Walmart and some others, there was strong opposition from the big box companies. What kind of lobbying did you get from Walmart and others about this minimum wage bill?
I didn't get any.
They had no problem with it?
No, they said nothing to me. I don't know if they talked to any of our staff, but I heard from no one, from Walmart or other retailers. I think, I go back to the LRAA, I think people felt like they were unfairly being singled out. And this bill, which I indicated even when that was being debated, that I would support an increase in the minimum wage. The increase I put on the table was actually higher than where this one starts. But I heard from nobody on that. I don't know. Did you all hear from anybody on it? Nobody, Bruce. Are you with the media?
Yeah, I'm WFW.
I can't hear you.
WFW, yeah. Hill DC, WFW.
Okay.
I got a two-part question for you, Mr. Mayor. One, you just signed the paid sick days bill.
I don't think we signed that. That was the minimum wage bill.
No, I'm talking about on the 2nd, on January 2nd. Paid sick days. legislation to extend it to tip workers?
I don't think we've signed it yet, have we?
Signed it?
Has it come forward? No, it hasn't even been transmitted by the council yet.
Okay, well, I guess that writes out my question. Well, I got one more question for you then.
Sure.
So the Urban Institute study is going to study the impact of the minimum wage regionally. Will that also?
No, we asked them to study it here. It probably will be in the context of other jurisdictions, but the focus is specifically on our city.
Will it cover also, tip workers in that study?
I think so. We've asked them to look at every facet imaginable. So I don't know that, because they haven't even given us a draft of the report yet. But I'm pretty sure they will look at the impact of tip workers, because they make a very low wage typically, on the assumption that the tips will compensate them for what they don't get in the wage. So I'm pretty sure it will. We'll double back with them to make sure that it will be included in the report. You're welcome.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Two things I want to ask you about, sort of Capitol Hill related. You mentioned the budget deal that's going to get voted on by the House today, most likely. The funding level for the DHS consolidation in St. Elizabeth's is underneath what the administration asked for, and it seems that Congress continues to have doubts about that whole project. What's been the message you've gotten on the prospects for the West Campus actually, them actually following through on what's envisioned for that?
Well, I mean, it's probably a broader issue, Mike, in terms of funding of almost anything, especially capital projects at this stage. I'm very optimistic about it, especially since the Coast Guard, was funded, was built. We now will soon have up to 3,700 employees who will be working on the West Campus. I think the presence of the Coast Guard there will help to make a strong case for why that is a good idea, to have the full Department of Homeland Security apparatus, including the headquarters there. So I guess my answer would be I'm optimistic about it. There are no guarantees, of course. We'd like it to be fully funded now. It is not. But we'll continue to work with our Congresswoman and work with the House and the Senate to elicit support for funding the full project.
Is there any thought given to whether the West Campus could possibly be a site for FBI?
I don't know. Do we? I don't think so, right? I think we advanced, as you well know, we advanced Poplar Point as a proposal. That's the one we stand behind. So we're continuing to work with them. It looked like there was some unique constraints that were imposed that might foreclose Poplar Point, but we continue to think it is an excellent site for the FBI. We'll continue to advocate for that.
Dorothy, I have one more, but Dorothy can go first.
In response to the question about the paid sick leave bill, you said it hadn't come to you yet. Do you intend to sign it, and do you intend to fund it?
Well, I want to get input from our staff. I haven't even seen it transmitted. I want them to analyze it, Ms. Brazil, and then we'll go from there. Yeah.
Last week, the CEO of Living Social said he was going to resign. And
who was that?
Tim O'Shaughnessy.
Oh.
He's going to resign. It increasingly seems like the company is not going to live up to really any part of its end of the $32 million tax break that you signed last almost a year and a half, I guess almost 2 years ago now. Looking back on it, do you feel like that may have been an error to put so much stock in the company?
No, because they have to earn it. Yeah, they haven't gotten anything. That's what Deputy Mayor said, but they have to be able to reach certain benchmarks. So they haven't gotten any dollars from us. It was an agreement within which you do these things and you will get these things. They haven't reached any of those benchmarks, so the city is not on the hook for anything at this point.
Disappointed though that they?
Of course. I mean, we look to it as a stimulus for our economy in the city. I've been to Living Social many times, and we worked with Tim O'Shaughnessy. I think again he's had some really bright ideas. And that doesn't mean some of those ideas won't come back at a later point. So, but again, the deal that was crafted, that was led by Deputy Mayor Hoskins, did not put the city on the hook for anything unless there were incentive agreements that were reached by Living Social, and they didn't meet any of those, so the city has paid nothing.
A lot of time.
Okay, thank you all very much.